Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest Level Up Roundtable, Designing for Accessibility. I'm Erin, also known as Breakfast Candy, and today we'll be joined by two expert developers, a special Roblox guest, and our incomparable interviewer, Dan, aka DSPAV. Dan, take it away.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you, everybody, once again for joining us for another Level Up, actually our last Level Up of the year 2022. And what a way to round it out with a topic that I think is extremely important and is near and dear to me, which is accessibility, right? Name of the game as game designers is we want to get the largest audience as possible to play our game. And a part of that mission is to make sure that it's accessible to everybody. So today, as Erin mentioned, we're joined by three really talented and well-versed panelists in the topic. And starting out with a level up first, we have a Roblox employee joining us today. She is known by the community as Bitwise Andrea, but we will call her Andrea today. Andrea, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great, and it's an honor to be here with all of you developers.
Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's I think you're still trying to figure out, but what's your official role here at Roblox?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out that name, but I've been at Roblox for about 4.5 years now. My role is I'm a senior software engineer on the accessibility team, which is a recently formed team, and I'm the founding member, which I'm super pumped about because there's a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm hoping to, talk to you all and learn from you all and figure out what our roadmap is going to be for the next N years, hopefully a long time. My past experience is in accessibility. When I first joined Roblox, I did web development, which was different and really fun, but that was like my first web dev job ever. But previously I worked on accessibility at Apple, and I interned on Google's accessibility team when I was in college. And my interest in accessibility actually started not from something that was really noble or like feel good, but I just really like sign language. I think it's the coolest language ever. I would check out dictionaries as a kid and practice the alphabet and learn new signs, and that kind of just got me into this world of like different modals of communication and information, and then being introduced into accessibility and technology was really cool, and that happened in college and kind of set me on this path.
Yeah. Most importantly, a fellow Georgia Tech alumni, right?
Yeah, go Jackets.
Woohoo! So you were talking a little bit about, finding that interest in college. Can you dive into that a little bit? Like, how did you originally get into accessibility there? And
yes, so there was there still is a research group at Georgia Tech that works on making educational games for deaf children that do it's probably changed now, but when I was there, they worked on validating signs with and those days connect technology. So someone would ask like, oh, where's the pumpkin? And then you would sign back, oh, the pumpkin's behind the tree. And it would validate that you set all the signs, or look for like minimal pairs matchings and teach you like, oh, you didn't sign tree, you signed flag, something like that. So love education, also like why I'm so excited about the robotics stuff and how that's relating to Roblox and everything. And there's just so much opportunity to teach, and it's also important for anything, any sort of game to be accessible too. So it's kind of cool that I got to work for a little bit on a game in university, and then now we work at Roblox long time after.
That's right. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us today. I can't wait to pick your brain on all things accessibility. Speaking of college, fresh off of his final exams, Wooly Wool, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. As he mentioned, I survived my final exams. Hooray. And I also survived the flu during final exams. So 2 on 2. Hello.
So you decided you wanted to do your final exams in hard mode, right? Like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not feel
it's
terrible?
Too easy. We have to make it. It's too easy. Let's make it harder. Come on.
Awesome. All right, Wooly. How about we dive in a little bit about your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started out on Roblox, and
Sure.
Some of the projects that you work on.
Yeah. So hello, I'm Wooly Wool. I joined Roblox back in 2012. So it is actually my 10-year anniversary on Roblox last month. I do a ton of programming, all of the above programming, whatever programming you need, I probably do it. I worked on many commissions in the past. Most recently, the one with like Flamingo and his crew with their little Halloween special. I helped create their little haunted mansion thing that they wanted to do, like an escape room type of game. Just recently, actually, we did release a game, Holiday Frenzy. It's a little Santa's Workshop kind of game. So I helped program that alongside 2Hex. And I did Summer Accelerator this past summer. So it was really exciting.
That's right. Well, just to plug Holiday Frenzy a bit, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's it about?
Oh, sure. So Holiday Frenzy is essentially, it's like work at a pizza place, but instead it's going to be about Christmas. And you're going to read off different notes from kids, whether or not they've been naughty or nice. And from there, if they're naughty, they get coal. Too bad. If they're nice, they get a pretty little toy, whatever they requested. It could be a unicorn, bicycle, etc. So you'll play as a builder, or there's like different types of roles. There's the reader, builder. Builder, you're going to be building the actual toys. So you'll be able to drag and drop different parts, match different images, and inflate different toys. And then there's the packager role, which is going to be essentially you're going to be taking the toys and putting them in presents and throwing them onto Santa's sleigh. Then there's the supplier role, which is to bring in the supplies because we don't have infinite toys, unfortunately. So you have to bring in the supplies. And then there's the manager role, which we tried to make a bit differently. We wanted it so that instead of the manager just giving people promotions, we wanted it so that they're able to actually tag along. And so they're able to upgrade different parts of the workshop to make everyone's workflow a lot simpler. They can increase different speeds for different roles, add different machines, all that kind of good jazz. And everyone is going to be working together to create these different toys. And hopefully we'll be updating soon because it kind of grew. So
awesome. Very exciting. My wife is a huge holiday season fan, so I'll have to point her in the direction of this to try it out. Okay, so on the topic of accessibility, I wanted to ask you, why is accessibility important to you? How did you originally garner an interest for the topic?
Yeah, so a little fun fact about me, I am actually physically disabled. So there's a lot of different things I have to do in order to do what is considered the normal activity. So that's what kind of really got me into accessibility, because there's a lot of games that I unfortunately cannot play if it's fast motion, there's too many controls. I unfortunately can't play that. So that's what really got me into accessibility, because it's like I really want to help out people who do have different disabilities to be able to play games that I worked on. So like with Holiday Frenzy, I tried to add in different settings so that people with different disabilities are able to play our games. Or even during Summer Accelerator, I tried to make our game a bit more accessible because it was a bit overwhelming. So I wanted it so that people were able to go in and have a good time. So hoping that we can grow that further.
Yeah, awesome. Last question I have for you, then we'll move on. But as you started on your journey of accessibility and finding experiences that were accessible to you, was there any game or feature experience that really opened your eyes to how games can be made accessible or available for everybody?
This is like not on Roblox, but my first ever game that really piqued my interest, I'd have to say, would have to be like Mario Kart Wii. Just because it's so simple. You just take a Wii remote and you move it around, and that's about it. Like you press the back button if you want to shoot something, or the arrows. So I just thought it was really cool to see like a game that, even though I'm physically disabled, I'm still able to play it. Like it's not like difficult. It's not fast paced. You're just turning the Wii remote around as if it was like a driver's wheel. So
yeah,
that's what got something that piqued my interest.
Awesome. Well, Wooly, thanks for joining us today. I can't wait to pick your brain on all things accessibility as we move forward. But before we do so, we have our final panelist for today, straight from the developer community as well. Angel, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hi, I've broken a little bit again. Hi. I'm doing well today.
Awesome. Well, Angel, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get your start on Roblox? Flex your street cred a bit. How long have you been on the platform and working on really cool experiences?
So I'm probably I'm the newest person to Roblox here, I think. I'm just about a year into my adventures here.
Okay. And
Uh,
what's your role on the projects that you work on?
so I'm a solo dev. I'm also an artist. So I do 2D clothing, and I've gotten to UGC recently, so I do a little bit of UGC.
Congratulations. Yeah.
But most of the time I'm just solo deving and playing games.
Okay. So jack of all trades, you can do everything basically.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, in your year on Roblox, what kind of projects have you been working on?
So right now our two major games are Angel Sensory Room, which is my biggest and my baddest. And it's my most popular. It's very fun. And our latest project is Pinball People, which still doesn't have a massive fan base, but we're working on it.
Okay. What's your elevator pitch here? What is Pinball People all about?
So Pinball People is a pinball game, but you're the pinball.
Okay.
That's the whole catch. There are massive pinball machines. We currently have 3. We're planning to add more. I think we have a total of 6 or 7 planned. And you spin around, you quite literally spin around boards and gather as many points as you possibly can to get some neat prizes.
Okay. Awesome. I'll have to check that out. That sounds really fun, actually. Well, I've been asking the other panelists this, so I'm going to ask you as well. We're here to talk about accessibility today. So Angel, for you, why is accessibility important?
So I'm disabled. I've been disabled since birth. I'm physically and mentally disabled. And it's just really hard to go about my day. I just find it really difficult. It gets worse as I age. So I've always used video games as a big escape, just from the daily turmoils. And I find issue in a few games where it's just difficult to play them. There's not a lot of games I can't play outright, but there are quite a few that I just find really hard to play. And most of the time it's for accessibility reasons. There's just a feature that isn't there that I need. And it would so I got really into accessibility just in general because I know I'm not alone in this. I know a lot of other people are stuck with the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually colorblind, which is a much lesser sort of disability, but I totally feel that way where it's like sometimes I'm playing a game. Like, for example, if I'm in a blue room and there's a purple circle that I'm not supposed to be standing on, I can't see it. So I just instantly die or something, right? But like as a game developer, you don't necessarily think about those things until they're sort of highlighted for you, right? So I think like this is why I'm really excited to talk to all 3 of you today. Is I think this is a great opportunity for us to highlight some of the challenges that players are going about, and how we can make those experiences better for them, right? So okay, so with that in mind, here are our 3 panelists. Let's go ahead and let's hop in. We got a ton of topics to go through, and I'm sure a ton of questions from the audience as well. So I'm going to try and get to all of our questions as soon as possible. So let's start talking about it. First, Andrea, I'm going to toss the first question to you. In your mind, what are the goals of accessibility?
So I'll steal kind of the intro that we give at the Accessibility and Localization Bootcamp for New Engineers at Roblox. And the common theme between both of those is you want to make your creations or the world usable by everyone. That's the goal. And with accessibility, your main constituents are people with disabilities. And for localization, it's whoever doesn't speak the native language of the game. So it's really just making the world available for everyone. And with you can see accessibility accommodations, or maybe there's a better word for that, like all the time in the real world, like anytime there's a sidewalk with a little ramp down, that's really important for, like, it's crucial for some people. And I bet you use them too all the time. So I think one of the things to keep in mind is you aren't just making it better for some people, you're actually making it better for everyone.
Right. Any thoughts on this as well, either Wooly or Angel? Goals of accessibility.
I wanted to add on to like what Andrea said. First, the part with like the ramp. Oh, if there's a ramp, I'm so happy. If there's stairs, I'll cry. But if there's a ramp, ooh. But like one of the largest goals I have in my games or whatever I program is I wanted to make it so that anyone is able to play our game. I don't want anyone who has any disability to feel left out just because like there's this game and they're not able to play it because their disability makes it harder for them to play it. So I try to make it so that like the games I work on, they're like a lot simpler. Like you may notice in like some of the games I worked on, the buttons are a bit larger, mostly because for me, it's hard for me to press sometimes on the buttons. So I try to make them larger. And I know some people, they may complain like, oh, it's a bit too big, but like there are people who kind of need it. And like I try to make the controls really simple. Like you'll never see games I create have two like keybinds being used at once because I can't do that. Like I'll just sit there and I'll struggle. Like that's not what good. So I try to make everything really simple. Anyone's able to do anything, and they can play our games with like at their own pace. They won't feel rushed.
Yeah. Angels, any thoughts on this as well?
I think Wooly will took all the words out of my mouth there.
I gave you the difficult position of having to. All right, well, I'll toss this one to you then. You can start it off, and then the others could feel like they don't have an answer. Let's try and frame the discussion for today, because there's a lot of different areas of accessibility that you can sort of make available for players. But you know, in your minds, what are some of the common accessibility challenges that a player can face?
If that's getting thrown to me. I always have issue with visibility.
Visibility.
Yeah, it's I I have it's so it's a lesser known disability, despite it never really getting classified as one, is vision issues. People with glasses are technically disabled. And sometimes it just becomes really hard to see things. I actually made note of this in my accessibility post on the Dove forum, that I make my mouse cursor has to be about double the size of normal, because otherwise I can't see it.
Yeah.
Wooly Will made a really good point with buttons being bigger. So I always have issue with like being able to see things.
Okay. Yeah. That's definitely a huge area we're going to cover today.
And light sensitivity. I always have issue with games being way too dark. And I can't see anything when it's too dark. For other players it's perfectly fine, but because I've got autism, and autism comes with a bit of light sensitivity, both in the dark and light ranges, just the darker games, it's just difficult to see anything.
Very straining on the eyes, you know. And yeah, no, I totally feel that for some experiences. Andrea, I want to toss it over to you. I know you think about all things accessibility all the time here at Roblox. In your mind, what are some of like the high level categories that you think about when you think about accessibility?
Usually I think about when information is only conveyed through like one channel or one medium. For instance, like the example that's kind of the classic example in game accessibility, and we actually have on our best practices doc, the doc site, is you have a ringing phone and there's nothing visual about it ringing. You don't have a caption, you don't have like a blinking thing, then that's only conveying it to through one medium. And not only are you leaving out anyone with a hearing impairment, you're also leaving out any single player who doesn't have their volume on, which especially with a lot of younger people and mobile players can be a really large group of people. So it's just, if you only have one medium and you're not able to fully leverage that or like sense it or intake it, then that's kind of the crux of a lot of different challenges. Definitely not all of them, but a lot of them. And I would say big +1 to the vision stuff. Like I don't have very good eyesight. I wear contacts all the time, and sometimes I just don't want to wear my glasses. They hurt my head, or I'm taking my contacts out. And I kind of use that as a time to be like, okay, what can I go through and actually use? And like Zoom on web is amazing, and like mobile devices have such good features for that. And I get so pumped when I see a Roblox experience that has like scaling of UI. It's rare and it's amazing, and I want to figure out how to make that better. But yeah, big +1 to vision ones, because those are the ones that I personally experience the most. I can't tell you how many times I get especially for console, I immediately start complaining whenever I have a game on console and I'm like, I can't see anything. I have to like go up all the way to the front. Makes me feel like I'm back in school and I'm in the back row and I have to go to the front.
Fair enough. Awesome. Angel, I want to toss this next one over to you. In your mind, you wrote a really thoughtful dev forum post on just accessibility, but just to sort of frame discussion for today, what are some examples of features that fall under accessibility?
So a lot more things fall under accessibility than people initially think. It's a ton. You mentioned being colorblind. Colorblindness settings are becoming increasingly more common in video games. We have Splatoon's color lock, for example. That's a really great example, actually. And other things like that. I have to actually pull up my examples list because I can't name them off the top of my head.
You had mentioned in our discussions before the show, like Minecraft accessibility settings.
Oh my God. Minecraft's accessibility settings are awesome. They are some of my they are my most favorite accessibility settings, because everything is customizable. So it makes it a very accessible game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, as a little experiment or like a little side project one time, I'm assuming that you know the Minecraft captions. They're the cutest captions. I love those captions so much. I play with them whenever I play Minecraft. I play with them, and I've worked on trying to make that as like a reusable module in Roblox. The code is currently garbage, but maybe eventually we'll have something that like you can kind of take inspiration from these accessibility settings that other games make and figure out what fits your creation, or get inspired to make your own way of addressing that problem.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Wooly, question for you. For developers who haven't actually thought of accessibility before, because I know you were sort of like in your summer accelerator group, the accessibility evangelist, and you converted everyone to the church of accessibility. But for developers who haven't started yet, where's a good place to start to make their games more accessible?
Yeah, so I'd say a really good start is with your visuals. I don't want to say like motion just yet because it really depends on your game, but everyone has visuals in their game, I would assume. So I would say like with their visuals, try and make it so that like the colors contrast. You don't want yellow on like some really bad like color background. I can't think of it in my right now on top of my head, but like you don't want any like really bad color combinations. So you want to make sure like your colors contrast with one another. Also making it so that like it's actually readable, because like there's some people that like put like really nice UI, but like it's so hard to read just because like the text might be really tiny, or like it's placed in a weird position. So you want to make sure like your visuals in your game is white text on yellow. That's a good example. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I will.
My eyes are hurting just thinking about that right now.
I want to add on to this one, if you would let me. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all I really had. Go on, Angel.
Yeah, white text on yellow. I talk about fonts a lot. When I did graphic design, back when I was doing that in high school, font is a huge issue because there are some fonts that just make text unreadable.
Is there like a certain style? Is it like sans serif or sans, or just like
I'm pretty sure I have more issue with serif fonts than sans. Contrary to popular belief, Comic Sans is actually one of the best fonts out there because it's dyslexic friendly.
What about Papaya? Does Papaya get the pass?
Papyrus?
Papyrus, yeah, that's what
I don't actually know. I don't use it enough. I'm not a big fan of it though. Just for
I'm gonna assume no, because it hurts my eyes to look at. But
yeah, it's quite thin.
Everyone convert your fonts to Comic Sans.
I love
New
how
era of
the
Comic
font
Sans.
tastes.
So I guess like I'm kind of laughing about it, but like, what is it about Comic Sans that makes it readable? Is it just like the characters are sort of rounded and, you know, easier on the eyes?
I think it has something to do. I don't actually know the science behind it. I just know it's dyslexic friendly, and it's been one of the only like massively available dyslexic friendly fonts, other than Open Dyslexic, which is younger though.
Okay.
I think it has something to do with the roundness of the characters, though. I have no idea.
Okay. So what I'm sort of garnering here is, you know, for a good place to start, right? As sort of like Andrea was saying earlier, and Wooly, you were saying as sort of you're guiding us here, is really to think about if somebody has one sort of path that they can go with sort of experiencing your game, or if you're starting out and you're creating one specific path for yours, think about if people with certain disabilities are going to be able to sort of access that content, right? I think I butchered that a bit, but we're gonna go into a few examples here in a minute. I really wanted to dive headfirst into best practices for a lot of different aspects of this disability. So we've talked a lot already about visual accessibility. That's where I kind of want to start, but we're also going to dive into auditory accessibility, learning disabilities, and maybe other disabilities that people don't necessarily think about as much, like epilepsy. But starting out with visual accessibility for players with blindness, partial vision, or color blindness, let's talk about color contrast a bit. What are some color contrast best practices that developers can sort of deploy in order to make their games more accessible to this cohort of accessibility users?
So I'll go ahead and start. But one of the nice things about color contrast is this is an extremely well documented best practice. Like there are guidelines from WCAG, which is a set of accessibility guidelines intended for the web, but are applicable to like a lot of just UI in general. And there are number of values for different font sizes that is recommended to meet with your forward ground font or your font color and your background color. So if you ever have a question about like, is my color contrast good enough? There are tons of resources online and calculators that can tell you. A lot of the times it has to do, it has to do with the brightness, basically difference of the hues that you're using together. And again, like the larger the text, the lower contrast you can get away with, the larger and bolder, but still it's definitely best practice to make sure that you choose have good color contrast on any of your UI. And the one thing I hear from developers and UI designers a lot is that oh, it's gonna like break my color palette, and it won't. I promise you. You can find like I always see this example of like really cute like white on a light blue background. If it's a darker blue, just slightly, like it can still fit in with your game. You can just tweak things one way or another, and I promise you, no matter what your color palette is, unless it's literally just yellow and white, in which case we should have a talk, but but I'm sure that you can find something that looks really good, and it might be a bit challenging to get there if you haven't thought about it before, but you can, I promise.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, like, you know, the aesthetics of it, because I've actually had this conversation for me personally in game development before when we're working on games. Like artists quickly found out I'm colorblind when you use me as like the litmus test for like, can I see something? And one of my solutions I would give them is like, you know, I gave the example of the blue ground with the purple circle before. Like if aesthetically that's what you want, you can still create a contrast on there to make it stick out. You can put like a white outline around that circle. You can put some other color to help that at least pop for the people who can't necessarily see that. So that is definitely a guiding principle for color contrast that I would throw out to everyone is, you know, in addition to making it look good, think about creative ways in which you can make sure that it stands out for all of your players.
I think I'll tack on to what Andrea said. It's actually a major thing we're taught in art school, and just when you're taking art classes in general, that colors have different brightnesses. If you set everything to a grayscale, every color has its own brightness value. So some colors are naturally darker than others. Your traditional red and greens, when you think of red and green, just like by default, they're typically going to be the same brightness, which is why red-green color blindness, people with it have issue telling the difference between them because they're going to appear as the same shade of gray. But if you use, say, a very, very pale gray, a very, very pale green, then a person will actually be able to tell the difference. So typically, it's just a matter of if you're having issue with the different brightnesses of colors and checking if somebody can see the difference between these two colors and being able to read your UI and stuff and similar, then a good sort of litmus test for it is, I mean, what we use in the art world, just set it to monochrome. If you can't tell the difference from the monochrome, a colorblind person can't.
Yeah, it's a good test, but the monochrome works because there's so many varieties of different color blindness out there. So I'm actually red deficient, and the way I sort of describe that experience is if you just go into Photoshop and you take any photo and you drag the red down a little bit, what you'll find is like certain shades are going to sort of blend and start to look like one another. So for example, greens and browns, right? Because brown has some amount of red in it, when you take that red out of it, it ends up starting to look green. Right. Same thing on why I mess up blue and purple is because when you take that red out of the purple, it's just blue. Right. So if you change, but there's different color blindness. So some people are green deficient. So it's the opposite of that. Some actually are weirdly, I think, blue deficient. So that messes it up. But that's a very, very rare aspect of it. But if you want to sort of test the field for everything that you're trying to create, monochrome is a good way to go because it can cover most of those bases. And then, as Andrea had just mentioned, there's really good resources out there that I'm sure we will be linking all over the place when this video goes live to sort of make sure that your colors are going to work for different cohorts of people. So
I just wanted to add, there's this really good resource. It was created by Adobe. You're able to put any color that you would want to put down, and it tells you really good contrasting colors. It's like Adobe's color picker, and I thought it would be a really good plug to put in because it was just screaming for it, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Okay, so we dove into color blindness a little bit, and Angel, we had been discussing before colorblind accessible color choices. Do you have like any good examples of, if people want to take a look at games that do it right, what are some good examples to use there?
Games that do it right. I'm going to say Minecraft again. That's only because Minecraft has really good accessibility options. They use a lot of light text on dark backgrounds, and that's pretty consistent throughout the whole game and throughout the UI. And that's honestly what I default to as well. While I do a whole lot of aesthetic sort of stuff because I'm an artist, generally my go-to is white or off-white text on a very dark background.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
I want to plug Super Doomspire because my favorite thing that they do is they add in a symbol for every team. And if you've used Teams on Roblox, you may notice that there are some places where we only use color to indicate what team you're on. For instance, the name of your like character's name above your head, it is colored to match it, which not only can have contrast issues, but also is failing this, okay, don't use color alone to convey meaning rule that you generally want to follow. So definitely check out Super Doomspire and appreciate their work. I hope that we can get Teams there someday.
Super Doomspire has incredible art and design. So it does make it very accessible.
Yeah, and it's really fun to play. So that's also the upside.
Triple whammy.
Well, one shout out for a feature that I want to call out because I've seen a colorblind mode, quote unquote, in a lot of different games before, and it usually ends up just being brown and depressing, and I don't want to use it. But Overwatch introduced a colorblind mode that really was like mind-blowing for me because they basically allow you to swap out one color for another color throughout the game. So I was able to swap out red for yellow, and suddenly I realized all of the characters, all of your opponents have a red background or a red outline on them, and everyone was basically cheating, and I had to just solely rely on the motion in the background to see where they are to shoot. When they had the yellow background, I was suddenly way better at the game because I was like, oh, I can actually see where the opponents are that I'm supposed to be fighting. So I think that's a really cool one. Just to throw out one more shout out. But we have talked to death the visual side of accessibility. So now I really want to dive into auditory accessibility. So for players who are deaf or hard of hearing, what are some best practices that we as developers can deploy in order to make that more accessible to that cohort of player? Maybe Andrea, I'll throw this one to you. You had been talking about deafness before.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of best practices that you can follow for auditory accessibility. My favorite resource overall, which I'll go ahead and plug, is the Game Accessibility Guidelines website, gameaccessibilityguidelines.com. I'll shoot it in the chat. They have tons of them here, and they also have examples from a bunch of games. So one obvious one is if you're conveying information through sound alone, also have like a visual that can go with it. Especially in the case of like the phone, it also kind of makes it cuter too. I think that another one that I'm sure Angel will want to tack on to, because there are lots of great experiences that do this, is have different controls for different audio types. So if you've ever been in like a really loud party or just a loud place and you're like, man, I really wish I could turn down this background noise and turn up the speech that I'm trying to listen to, you can do that. In Roblox or really any game, you have the power to do that. And it's also not as challenging on Roblox because we have sound groups as a feature too. So that's a big one that our like sound APIs and the way that we have sound set up actually kind of helps you do. So have a way for people to decide which volumes they want louder or slower or softer. This can also help with people with cognitive disabilities because it can get really overwhelming to have tons of sound effects and background music. I almost always turn my background music either entirely off or just at the lowest because I find it really overwhelming to have too many sounds at the same time.
Yep. Hello, I'm said person with a cognitive disability that has to do that.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Angel? Like, what's that experience for you in games generally?
Oh, sure. So autism also comes with, autism comes with a lot of sensitivities to external stimuli, and audio is a massive one. Really loud audio is the bane of my existence. If you are blasting really loud audio that I can't lower, it becomes an issue and I'm probably going to leave the game. So if I can't turn it down, I'm going to get really overstimulated. It becomes physically painful, certain noises. If it becomes loud enough, it will actually hurt. So it's very problematic.
Right. Can you point us to like a game on Roblox that has good volume control options or accessibility options that make that experience easier for you?
So I'm not actually aware of any games that do this. Surprisingly,
okay.
Yeah. I might have actually put one in my post, but I don't know. I don't recall.
Oh, is the question like the sound group stuff on Roblox?
Yeah. What are some accessibility features that developers can implement to make it?
I'll go ahead and give a shout out to Split by Ego Moose. Nice puzzle game and has lots of good accessibility features in the settings.
It's like, I know of games that do it. I just don't know of Roblox games that do it.
So what's
sorry.
Ahead,
I just wanted to add with the sound group thing. We actually did this with our Holiday Frenzy. We did apply sound groups and we made it so that like you're able to toggle down like the volume in the settings bar that we have. So we made it so that like whatever, so like we have background music, so we put all the background music in a sound group and you would just be able to put whatever volume percentage you would like. And it would set that volume percentage to all like the sound group. So that's just like one setting that we did in our own game.
Well, let's move on to our next group, our next cohort for accessibility. This would be motor accessibility. So for players with motor disabilities. Wooly, I'll throw this one over to you. Do you want to just first of all give us a little bit of a background of like motor disabilities and the challenges that those players face in games, and then maybe we can hop into some best practices for how to make it a better experience for these players?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about like what my own disability is because it's just like something I'm a lot more comfortable talking about. with my own disability, it's like a lot harder for me to like do like I can't bend or anything. So it's a lot harder for me to like do fast movement, I want to say. One
Mhm.
big thing with motor disabilities, or just like there are some, I'm gonna like say shooter games because it is something that a lot of shooter games have, is like you're gonna have to move around and you'll also have to shoot at the same time. And that's something I can't do. Like I'll just have to stop, then shoot, then move around. I think Zach actually witnessed me trying to play Arsenal and it failed miserably because like I can't really play it. But like that's like one of the like larger umbrellas with motor accessibility. It's just like there's a lot, if it's like fast pace, or like there are just so many different controls, or just like the controls are really complex to those who do have physical disabilities. It's something really hard for us to do. Like one of the ways that we try to combat this actually is we want to add in like custom keybinds. I know
Mhm.
a lot of games they don't really add it, but it actually saves a ton for like a lot of people who try to play their games, and actually it makes it a lot simpler for people who just want different keybinds for their different things. It makes it a lot more inviting for people to play those games. A really funny story I always think about, like especially during Summer Accelerator, was I was tasked to create the build mode system in our game, and yeah, it was working great for me. Everything was fine. It was moving. We got the camera system. You're able to place, but when my actual team tried it, it wasn't. It didn't work out for them. It worked for me. Physically disabled was great, perfect. But for someone who was actually able, they couldn't play it. It was just really funny to watch. And so you also have to think about you have to think about both groups. You'll have to think about those who are abled people who are able
Yeah.
to play your games. You'll have to think about them. Then you also have to think about the physically disabled. I kind of just went in with like, oh, I need to be able to use this build post system. So if I can't use it, we have a problem. And then I didn't really
Right.
think about the abled. So it was just really funny.
Right. So you kind of, that's really interesting. So you kind of just answered this, but I'm sure this is a question people have. Is there like a one size fits all keybind or configuration that can be accessible to everyone? Or is it just better to sort of open that option up for people to customize it in the way that's most accessible to them?
My best recommendation is to open it up, allow people to customize it, because everyone comes in with everyone comes in with whatever disability they have, and it's really hard to put in that one size fits all because everyone, they have their own disability. It's different from one
Yeah.
another. So it's just like I usually try to make it so that they're able to put their own keybind in and it'll work for them, even if you're able to maybe have your own like preference. So I feel like if you make it so that you can change it, it works for everyone. And that's a Holiday Frenzy settings bar. We tried to make it so like you're able to change the sound volume. It tells you you can set your keybind just by pressing it. We have like a little
Mhm.
depth of field kind of thing, and then we have like a tutorial in our game, which we'll touch on later. But you're able to turn it on and off. So we just tried to make it so that there are different settings for little things in our game.
Mhm.
Yep, I'm
Oh,
going to second the best one size fits all is fully customizable.
yeah. Well, I think regardless of that, even for a fully abled person like me, I hate when people make me use the control key. So just put custom keybinds in anyway for everybody. It's just a better experience.
Yeah, on Mac we have a lot of issues with that as well. When games ask us to use the F1 keys, we can't. We can't use the F keys without pressing an extra button because our F keys are bound to things like screen brightness.
Oh,
So
geez. Yeah.
every time a game has to ask me to press an F button, I either have to change the keybind or find a really convoluted, a really complicated and convoluted way to do it otherwise. Either
You're just
that or I
playing
can't
games
do
on
it at
hard
all.
mode at that point.
I
You
just
get
play
to
games
play.
on hard mode, yeah.
Yeah, you just push two buttons at once.
One what Oh,
Sorry, go
sorry,
ahead,
I just
Willie.
wanted to add one thing. Also with like controls, like moving around, one thing I always like tell people, and it's kind of like, whoa, that's revolutionary. I don't actually use the WASD. Like that thing is really hard for me to use because like it's like further up in the keyboard and it makes my arms really tired after a bit. It's something that came with my physical disability. So it's just like I don't use it. Like it's like, ugh, it's like I'm allergic to it. So I use arrow keys, and like a lot of people kind of look at me like, whoa, that's revolutionary. So like what I try to do in my own games is I try to make it so that both WASD and arrow keys can be used. Like in our build mode system, you'll notice it, especially You're able to use the arrow keys to move up and down, left to right, etc. And you're able to do it with WASD. So it's just something like I tell a lot of developers, please allow for both. Don't make it only WASD, or I will not be able to play your game in peace.
Right.
I'll struggle.
I want to hop on with one last point and a bit of a plug for a new change that we've made where I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with controller navigation, like if you're supporting an Xbox controller, and we have APIs that help you support that. And we recently added a keybind that basically enables that same switching of like going into UI navigation on keyboard. So it can act as a way to verify like how your controller navigation will work just out of the box without having to do anything. And also it kind of can open your eyes up to, oh, okay, maybe I don't have to like click on all these buttons. Maybe I can navigate to them with the arrow keys and activate them with enter. And maybe you notice, oh, I'm in a modal and there's nothing for me to press to close the modal. Maybe I should have a close button, or maybe I should have it bound to delete, and maybe I should expose that clearly to users, because using your keyboard instead of a mouse to interact with UI is really nice. And especially when you get into like really competitive games, you'll notice that a lot of keybinds are exist for common menu actions because you want to go like into those really quickly. So not only is it really important for people who might have a difficult time using a mouse, it can also make your players have a better, more efficient time in your game.
Awesome. All right. We are about to eat into time for Q&A, but there's two more sort of cohorts I want to get into. So let's hop into them really quick. Angel, I'm going to toss this one over to you. So accessibility for players with epilepsy or migraine triggers. I know this is something that you struggle with a bit. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and when it can commonly occur in games, and then we can sort of dive into some best practices to avoid those triggers for those players?
Yeah, so I suffer from chronic migraines. And the main issue I have with them is normally these migraines come about from visual cues or noise. So my main thing is always just never have flashing lights, never have really like bright things that move really quickly. I've got some issue with like I don't know, really fast movement in games that make the textures go by very quickly will often cause a migraine for me. And I've had to put down a few games, just stop playing them because of that. And there is one game where every time this one specific map comes up, I've got to close it. And I understand there's a lot of times where you don't want to like, where you can still keep the brightness. I understand my sensory room game is quite bright in a number of areas. But it's just, you got to put a warning up in that point. I understand it's a bit exclusionary, but it's better. It's still better than having none at all.
Yeah. So Aaron, I think we have an example. Yeah, so this is a warning. What game is this from?
Oh, this is from my sensory room.
Oh, okay. So when does this pop up in the game?
So this pops up in the description, actually. I always include, every time this is applicable, I include it right there, just right from the start where everyone can see it.
So it's kind of just like a common courtesy for people with this disability that they can see this and be like, okay, this feature isn't for me, I should step away from it.
Yeah, it's and you should always change this to like sort of say maybe this will be good for you, maybe it won't be, because epilepsy and other visual disorders are always different. And if it's a very minor degree of stuff, you can always say, oh, it's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
But if it's a lot, then specify a lot.
So bright flashing lights, contrasting colors, those can be a trigger. Are there other triggers as well for this group?
I'm not terribly aware of that myself. Again, I've just got the migraine part. But yeah, primarily they'll be flashing lights and very quickly moving graphics.
Yeah, there's like a very detailed breakdown of exactly what stuff can well, from like scientific research, trigger epileptic seizures. And it's pretty overwhelming when you first look at it. Like the definition of repeating patterns and flashing lights, and like red flashes are way worse than white flashes. And also it
Really?
corresponds to how much of the screen the flashing takes up. So if it's like a small corner of it, not a big deal. And they have there's lots and lots of detailed stuff, and I've actually been working on for a long time now, trying to figure out a way to, you know, summarize this in the doc site, because it's kind of, again, it is complicated and it's not the same thing for everyone. And also one thing to keep in mind, if you do have, you know, let's say a fire alarm in your game and the whole screen flashes red and you have this warning, some people, like everyone who has this problem, will experience it for the first time somewhere, and you really don't want it to be in your experience. So really, if you're having something with excessive flashing lights and you think that this might cause a problem for someone, consider the fact that someone might not even know that they're sensitive to it. The classic example of this is there was a Pokemon episode aired in, I think, Japan, like a long time ago, and there were like either nearly 100 or hundreds of kids admitted to the hospital for the first time because it had this scene of bright red flashing lights.
It was Pikachu doing a thunderbolt and the screen was just flashing.
It wasn't. It was actually, I believe it was a move used by Porygon. I'm only saying that because
okay.
of Pokemon
All right,
nerd.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. Yep, I remember that one. I wanted to add one more thing too. It doesn't also have to apply with games too. I've seen it. I saw actually yesterday, there was a website from a company that was trying to showcase all of their games and everything. And like they had like the video at the header, and like instead of like, they didn't really warn that it was like really excessive. So when I went in, my poor eyes were like burning because it was like, it's so fast.
no.
Everything was fast paced. It was white. There was just so much action going on. And it kind of made me jump. Like I was like, oh, whoa. And it was just like, you couldn't really turn it off. It just kind of plays in the loop. So you kind of just had to sit there and scroll really fast or leave. So it's just like having that courtesy of just saying like, hey, by the way, this contains flashing lights, fast movements, or just making it so that you don't even have to play it right from the start. If it does contain that stuff, you can press play, because it may be cool, but it kind of it hurts some people. So
Autoplay is the worst.
oh, for
Well,
sure.
autoplay in general is just the worst, but yes, in addition.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're able or disabled. Autoplay is awful.
So one more I wanted to toss out here before we move on, but I've seen this in accessibility settings and I know it's an issue as well, but excessive like camera shaking. So even if you're making a dinosaur game and you want to sort of signify that it's coming to town and crushing things, just be careful of that. Yeah, we have settings here. Does anybody want to speak?
Camera shake is really bad. I used in my accessibility post, I used the example of 3008. Awesome game. But they allow you to disable the camera shake. But if there's a camera shake, it not only affects us disabled players, it also affects the abled players, because it makes things really hard to see. And sometimes that's important.
Right.
Totally agree. This is one that I definitely am sensitive to, and I especially love it. Like I think camera shakes, like tactful camera shake, is so cute and immersive, and I like that feeling, but some are just way too strong. So I actually prefer a slider for these too. Like if I could just like put down the intensity, that makes it like I still get to have that, but it's less. It's like if you're in a car and it's really, really bumpy versus just a little bumpy, there's a big difference in the feeling of that.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our last cohort that we're going to cover today. Accessibility for players with learning disabilities or ADHD. What are some ways that we can make our games more accessible to this cohort of player?
So I think this is, sorry, Wooly Will. This is one of like my major realms, being autistic and everything. I always love tutorials. I love tutorials a lot. I will scream tutorials to the end of my days, but I think Wooly Will's going to cover that more. Another thing is it's more of a community issue than anything else. But there's just like not a whole lot of acceptance. Acceptance is a big major issue in every social circle. There are a lot of derogatory things that get thrown around about disabled people, and it especially happens to us to us with mental disabilities because they're less visible.
Mhm.
And it becomes problematic. And on Roblox, I mean, if you've got chat open, it just sort of happens. So spreading acceptance in video games and in Roblox is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you know, I think in a lot of cases, people take for granted the challenges that this cohort of player can have when playing a game. They just attribute, oh, you're bad, or you're just trying to troll us or something like that. And it's actually just a struggle for this group. Wooly, I know you've been trying to get in here.
I'm so sorry, Wooly.
I wanted to give
You're
you the
fine,
floor
you're
here.
fine. Well, like one thing I just wanted to say, what Dan brought up was like, oh yeah, I get a ton of people who tell me, oh, you just have a skill issue. It's okay. It's just like one of those kind of things where it's just like, no, like what am I supposed to do? Like I can't do it. So it's just like, ugh. I hate it whenever people use that skill issue thing on me because it's like, yeah, it's a skill issue, but I can't really control it. So yeah, but with tutorials, like especially in Holiday Frenzy, we knew that this game was like, it's really cool, it's really fun, you're able to build things, all that good jazz. But like we knew it was gonna be confusing eventually. It's like, oh, there's so much that you can do. So we knew it was going to be a bit confusing. So we wanted to add in like different markers to help players understand where to go. So like as you can see on your screen, there's this pretty little blue arrow that shows you where to go, like as you're going through. So like when you first, like you're able to get like these toy kits, when you first pick it up, it shows you like where to go. It's like these little steps that we try to add in so that it becomes a little bit more repetitive and it helps you like understand like, hey, I know how to do this now. It's not like confusing, especially for a first-time player, because we want first-time players to understand the loop of the game and not go in and feel confused. And we're hoping to improve this further because we did receive a lot of feedback from like this, like they thought this was really cool, but there should be more because there were certain parts in our game that were like, I don't know how to do this. And it's just like, so we're hoping to add more, of course, but like I try to add in tutorials into any of my games because I want people to be able to play our games in peace. There's this also we try to make it so like with like building toys, we wanted to add in like this little marker. Unfortunately, this is not a GIF, so I couldn't really get a GIF at the time, but what it would do is it would show you like a little like cursor that shows you like, hey, you need to drag this wheel to this green part. Right now it doesn't look so accessible. We need to add a little marker, like a little what's it called, like patterns or something, because I as we're talking, I just like thought to myself, I'm like, man, that green and red is not gonna work out.
I was about to pick
like
on you.
I know. I was just like, oh goodness. Yeah. So we're still working on it. We're hoping to improve it a lot more. I think we have a good like foundation, but there's a lot more that we can add to it. But this is just like one of the little tutorial things I was thinking. I knew when I was talking about this, like Dan's gonna bring it up. So I just thought I'd bring it up.
I'm sure I've added like blinking lights or shaky cameras. I've probably committed accessibility sins in the past.
Oh, I totally have.
All of us have, for sure.
Yeah.
Always.
It's near impossible to hit every box.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention with the tutorials is like a kind of related best practice of, if you've ever given a presentation, you're a little nervous about it, you've probably practiced beforehand. And a repeatable tutorial can kind of act as a sandbox for practicing and having a safe space to practice a game in, especially like, I don't consider myself a particularly good video game player, and anything competitive, like I need time on my own to develop those skills. And there's kind of this two-pronged approach to it, and a repeatable tutorial is a really good way to hit that box.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I brought it up. I think I brought it up in my Deathworm thread a while back. It's a rather new edition though. That a lot of roguelikes, the roguelike sort of genre, a lot of them will lack a tutorial or have a very small one. I've always thought of that's okay. That's sort of how roguelikes are. Roguelikes are naturally hard to learn. And that's the whole point. And I enjoy a lot of roguelikes. I'm a big fan of roguelikes. But I always think that some of the best roguelikes in the genre, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is the hardest Pokemon series, because it is a roguelike. But it still includes some very small tutorials to tell you how to use items and stuff. So even if your game naturally is supposed to be hard, you should at least include a little bit of a tutorial.
Yeah, it's kind of, so this is going to be a very weird analogy, but bear with me. It's almost the exact same as keybinds, right? Where some people won't touch their keybinds at all and others are going to customize every single key. It's the same thing for tutorials. Like some people are going to just skip through the tutorial. They don't care. They're going to learn on their own. But for others, it's something that they're going to continually go back to because, as everybody's been saying, it's kind of this nice, safe space where they can sort of focus on what is the gameplay? How do I do it? How do I figure it out? Right. So as with everything in games, it's just good to provide these options because different players have different needs and different preferences. Okay, we are wrapping up here before Q&A. Andrea, I'm going to toss this one over to you. Are there any tools in Studio that can help developers implement accessibility features?
So I'll go ahead and be pretty honest with you and say I think we're really lacking in it. And I think it's okay to admit that because I think it's only going to get better. It's kind of nice to start from like ground zero and say, when people ask me like, oh, what does Studio have? And I'm like, not much, but like that means we can have everything. And that's also where I'd like to ask all of you, please use the dev forum to either like show your support for feature requests related to accessibility, or make those requests directly. Like I've already seen in the chat, like color contrast checker, that's something that we have considering on our roadmap. And what text-to-speech API, I love that request. And I really want to see that come through. I think that'd be so cool for so many reasons. So we don't have much yet and we're working on it. And I want to make it, best in class in the future.
Awesome. All right, final question from me. I'm going to toss this out to the entire panel. Beyond adding accessibility features, is there anything that developers can do to foster inclusive communities around their games?
I don't know, just listen to disabled people. I seem to run into this issue a lot where I will bring up an issue and the devs will just brush me off. Either that or some have even snapped at me before. It's just a matter of just listening to us and understanding where we're coming from.
I feel like if you are questioning something or you're like, does this really work for all players? Asking different players to actually try out the feature is what will solidify your answer. I know a lot of people have reached out to me and asked me like, hey, can you please try out my game? I feel like it's not accessible for physically disabled people. Please help. I go in and I try, I give all my feedback and everything. Especially during Accelerator, I liked it when we had like our little test sessions. So I can go in and I'll be like, oh, is this game accessible? Here we go. And so like if there's any issues, I could be like, hey, by the way, these controls, they don't work for me, or like, they're not really that accessible. So it's just like having people try out your game, like just different backgrounds, try to get a lot of people you don't know, especially too, will help out with like trying to make your game a lot more inclusive, because you can get a lot more feedback and understanding of what could be added to make your game a lot more inclusive and happy for everyone.
Yeah, it was really cool to see everyone from Woolly Wool's Accelerator class come and visit the accessibility booth at RDC, because almost all of them mentioned you and said, oh yeah, we had like someone advocating for this within our group. And it not only has a great immediate effect of everyone who you interact with thinking about that, but this nice long butterfly effect of they're probably going to think about that for the rest of their game development careers and maybe even talk about it with other people. So when you talk about it and bring these things up, especially in like a constructive way, I mean, like Angel said, and like Dan said, we've all made mistakes. I have a horribly inaccessible game on Roblox, and I know that. And it's actually like, that's okay. We're just trying to make it better and learn.
Yep. Yeah. And, just to sort of wrap everything up, you don't have to know every single thing about accessibility off the top of your head. But that's a great way to sort of get those perspectives, is to have people play it and then to listen and to see if you can make your experience more accessible to everybody. So with that, I wanted to thank you guys for joining me for this discussion today. And I'm going to toss it over to Erin, who will pick it up for Q&A.
And that's all the time we have. Join us for part 2, where Woolly Wool, Control Core Angel, and Bitwise Andrea answer audience questions about accessibility, coming soon. If you don't want to miss out on that video and other great Roblox game development content to come, subscribe to the Level Up YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.